Hello everyone. So we will just begin in a while. Wait for a few minutes, 2 to 3 minutes, and then we can start off with our today's session. Hello Seema. Welcome. I hope you all are doing good. I hope it's going well with everyone. So you all can start saying hi and your school name once you start joining in, so that we can start addressing everyone who is on the platform. Hello Anupreet. Hello Seema. I'm good. Hi Ishan. Okay, Gia. I'm so sorry. You have logged in through Seema. That's why. Hi Ramya. So we can just wait for 2 more minutes. We can get started with our today's session. So I hope you all are having a good learning and a fun learning through our sessions. I hope these sessions are getting useful and you can all use it in your day-to-day life. We are trying to make it as easy as we can, so that all the children joining here, all the children who are enthusiastically joining us for the sessions, they can take the benefit out of it, they can make the best out of it, and they can use it in their lives as well. Hi Suman. Hi Sai. Hello Yuvashri. Okay, so I think we'll just wait for a minute or so and then we can get started. So we will just quickly brief about what we had been learning for this last 3 days till the time people are joining in. So we have been covering food safety measures for all the different food groups. So we have first covered about milk and milk products, then we have covered about fruits and vegetables. And yesterday we thought to take up another important topic, which was about packaged foods and also home preservation techniques, how important it is for home preservation, and how importantly we as Indians, we have been practicing home preservation techniques since a long time. So how these things are nutritionally, they are either they are changing the composition of the food or not. So accordingly we started with it. I think we are good to start. It's already 5, so we will begin with our session. So hello everyone, good evening. So myself Nerita, and I am the senior nutritionist at HappleyFit. And we at HappleyFit, we are running this 6 days long program, which is a week long program where we have taken up this very important topic, which is about food safety. So 7th June is worldwide celebrated as Food Safety Day. And it is specifically, this day has been founded to make people aware how important it is to have safe food, to have an exposure and availability to safe food. And that's why we wanted to take this opportunity to make people aware, more and more people aware, specifically children, because children, if they are getting aware of this, they can stop the spread, of any foodborne illnesses a lot, because they are the future of any country. So so yeah, good evening everyone. Good evening. So yeah, so I think we will start off. So first we had taken these the topics like milk and milk products and fruits and vegetables, and then we spoke yesterday about preservatives and packaged foods, and also refrigeration technique. So today we have come up with basically 3 small topics which play a very important role in our diet, and which also play a role to have safe food. So they will be basically sugary products, which are basically sweetening or agents or sweeteners. We can call them as natural sweeteners, like sugar, table sugar, which we use, or honey or jaggery. Then we will be also talking about spices. So spices again play a very important role in our diet. So all of this we will be dealing with them, and also about oil. So how we can check and how we can assure what oil we are getting and if it is safe for our consumption or not. So today again in the midway, around 5:15 or 5:20, we will be taking up the questions for around 5 minutes, and again at the end at 5:30 we will be taking up the questions for 5 more minutes. So let's begin. And also all the children here, make sure you are attending all the sessions till Saturday. Saturday we will be holding a quiz. So Saturday will be only for the quiz, and as a conclusion we will be having a fun quiz for everyone. We will be getting the results. We'll be taking out the results in a day or two after the quiz. 2 lucky winners will be winning prizes and goodies, and also they will be winning free services from HappleyFit. So let's begin with it. So first I would like to take the topic of spices. So spices basically they are a very important part of our diet, and spices can be anything ranging from haldi or namak, that is salt, table salt, then red chili powder, garam masala. Then it can also be whole spices like cloves or elaichi. They can be black pepper. So there is a lot of spices which play a very important role in our Indian diet. So spices, most of the spices, if you go back and check their origin, they are usually produced and they are produced in India. So India is leading exporter of spices. So it's like most of the spices are grown in India, they are exported out to other countries. So spices definitely play a very important role in our diet. So particularly if we talk about their health benefits, spices are very good for digestion. They give good digestion. They prevent any kind of bloating. So specifically like jeera, ajwain, hing. These are the spices, Indian spices, which usually relieves any bloating or any gastrointestinal or acidity issues. They will relieve them. And then there is spices like fenugreek, which is methi seeds. So they are very good for diabetics. They are very good for insulin insensitivity. So spices play a major role in our diet. So when we are getting spices, there can be 2 things that we will be looking for. So first is if a spice is we are getting from a local origin. So if you're getting a locally grown spices, try to check for the quality. You can always use your senses, like we had been talking for the very first day. You will be using your eyes, nose, and your sniffing and touching. So usually you won't be able to touch or see like that in a packet, but definitely you can sniff as in you can use your nose and you can see if the spices look good, appealing, and they should be definitely without any insects or any pests moving in them. So that is one thing. And secondly, if you're getting any packaged spices, like many well-known brands do produce and do commercialize spices powder. So in that case, again, like we spoke about, it's very important to check the manufacturing and the expiry date of the spices also. So try to check for them, make sure you are not taking any expired product, you're not using any expired product. Secondly, you have to also check for FSSAI license, like we spoke about yesterday. So food licensing is very important. Without food licensing, if you're taking some packaged product, it definitely can be hampered, or there can be some mishaps which might have happened, or some additives or adulteration which might happen in the product. So do check it. Secondly, when we are talking and when we are in this era of pandemic outbreak of COVID-19, it's very important that whatever you're getting from outside, you need to make it safe, and you should not be spreading any surface contamination from whatever you're getting from outside. So try to, you don't need to really wash the box or the poly bag or whatever you have in which you're carrying. In which you're carrying in which the spices are there, but you can always rinse it, or you can take a cloth which is sanitized, or a cloth that is clean. You can just dip it in sanitized liquid or plain water as well, and you can just dry wipe them. Do not wet them, because spices are very susceptible to getting spoiled, and you cannot add moisture to them. So there comes the storage part. So when we are trying to avoid or prevent any surface contamination, you can just make sure that you're clean rinsing the surface of the spices boxes or plastic polybag, whatever in which you're carrying it, or in which whatever it is packed. So secondly, when we come to the storage of spices, as we mentioned, any of the powdered spices, and for that reason, any of the whole spices as well, there should be no water or moisture that goes into them. So you have to be very conscious about it, that there is no water or moisture, even if you're keeping it, if you're not keeping it in a airtight container and there is a lot of moisture, and you're staying in a humid area, like maybe in the coastal regions or something, so there is your spices can get spoiled very very easily, because they need a dry dry atmosphere to stay good. They stay for very long, they do not usually get spoiled very quickly, but moisture is something that you have to take care. If you stay in some humid area, you can refrigerate them, or you can keep them also in the freezer to prevent any kind of moisture growing on them. You would usually observe if there is even a drop of water falling in the turmeric powder or say salt, you would usually observe that there are clot or clumps forming, which definitely makes it not fit for usage. So you need to throw it, or maybe you need to dry them out. So it's something that you need to definitely avoid. So this is about how you can get the spices, you can store them, and how you can prevent any surface contamination happening from the surface. So we will quickly move on to few of the adulteration techniques for spices. Spices basically, and we will be starting with salt. So salt, you might all have been observing that salt usually is supposed to be iodized. Most of the common brands of salt, they market saying these are iodized salt. Iodine is something which is a very important part of our diet. They play a lot of roles, so we should be having iodine in our diet in small amount, and adding iodine to the salt is something where we can get the iodine from the salt very easily. So how do we check if our salt which we have has iodine in it or not? So we have to take a potato here. So potato is going to work as a starch source here. So just to brief you all, iodine in presence of starch should give us blue color. So this is a chemical technique. So even you kids, if you have if you have studied in your class, or if you have studied in your laboratories, usually any chemical reactions when we are doing, iodine with starch should give us a blue color. So that is the color depiction. So we will use the similar technique, and we will be using this half potato, which I have here with me. I've just freshly cut it before we started with our session. So what we will do is, I have taken here a pinch of salt. So I'll just take here a pinch of salt, which is this one. And here on the surface, I'll just tilt it and show you all. On the surface of the potato, we have to dip, or we have to keep this salt. Okay, so here we keep the salt on the surface of the potato, and we have to wait for like 30 to 40 seconds to see if there is any blue color coming on the surface or not. If the salt is iodized, it is ideally supposed to show blue tinges or blue shade on the surface of the potato. So here I will be waiting for just around 30 seconds to see if there is any color change that is happening or not. So I'll just get it closer. So unfortunately, I do not see a change happening on the surface of the potato. So this experiment definitely I have tried before we did this. And similarly, this is a common brand of salt that I have been getting. But there is no iodine tinges, or I don't see any color change that is happening. There is no blue tinge that is coming on the surface of the potato. So this means that even if this particular brand of salt is saying, or it is marketing that it is an iodized salt, there are a fine chance that this is not added with iodine, or the amount of iodine in it is very less, so as to it is not making any color change. See, it is almost a minute or more than that I have been holding this. Still there is no color. So you can check this. This is a very quick and easy experiment, and you can all check it and see if the salt that you're using is iodized or not. Even if they claim to be, there might be certain like exceptions where even after claiming there is no iodine added to it. So do check it and see what is happening, and you can let us know in the comment section later on as well, and do tag us also. So next one, what we will be doing here is we will be checking for a color dye which might be used in spices like red chili powder or turmeric powder, which basically have color in them, right? So what we will be doing is, I will be taking here 2 samples. So I've got here 2 glasses, and I'll be adding some amount of water to it. So I have added this much of water to both of it. So you can see this. So what we will be doing here is, now I have 2 samples of red chili powder with me. I have a common red chili powder which I usually use at home, and one is a plain red chili powder which is there, and the second one is a red chili powder which I have added with a little bit of dye in it to show the difference, how it looks like. So first we will practice. We will see the same. So I have taken this, and here I have taken a pinch of red chili powder. I'll be adding this in the water. And if you all can see, I'll just tilt it all for you all. So the color of the water is definitely not changing. Okay, so red chili it do have a pigment in it, but it definitely do not change the color immediately once we put it in the water. So this is the usual red chili powder that I have at home, and that is what I'm using here. This experiment, this we will be using for another set of experiments, so I'll keep it aside. And here there is no color change that is happening in the water unless I am dissolving it. So if I start churning it or dissolving it, it might start releasing a equal or a neutral color throughout. It will not be in lumps. So the second one, what we will be doing it, I have taken here a fresh glass of water again, and I will be taking a pinch of red chili powder. So here you all can see the difference. So here this one I have added a bit of color to show you all the difference. So you can see there is an instant change of the color of the water. I don't need to do anything here. So this one was the other one where I have added the red chili powder. So this is in my right hand, and this one is one which I have added with a pinch of red dye so that I can show you all what is the difference. So if your red chili powder just gets dissolved in the water, immediately giving it a red color, that means your red chili powder has certain amount of color adulterants or dyes to it to make it give that red color. So try to check for red chili powder. It can be for branded, unbranded, local, anything. It does not matter. Adulteration can happen in any of the brands. To do check for that. So secondly, what we will be doing is we will be using this same red chili powder water, in which I had added the unadulterated one, which was not adulterated with any dye. I'll take that, and here we are trying to check if there are any husks, or if there is any ground fiber that is added. So husk means the outer covering of any grain. So it can be gehu, wheat, or it can be rice. The outer covering, which is the husky part, which is the fibrous part, which is usually thrown away. If that is added to any of your spices, that is usually added to give your spices a bulk, so that will increase the volume, right? So if you see anything like that, how do you check it? So usually it is something which is really common, and even in this glass of water which we checked for the dye, if it is added with any dye, I'll show you and get it closer. So what you have to check here is there should be no filaments, or there should be no light part of any light things floating on the surface of the water. So I had added a pinch of red chili powder here in our first experiment, and you can see there is few of them which has got settled at the bottom of my glass, whereas there are few particles. If you see here closely, there are few particles which are floating on the surface of the water. Now this means that there is a little bit of husk or fiber added to the red chili powder that I am using, because they want to increase the volume of the red chili powder. There will be a little bit of it definitely added. It can also be at times the husk or the dry skin of the red chilies itself. But if the quantity is too much here, in my case, it's not a lot of it, but still it is there. It definitely means that there is a slight adulteration with husks which are done. So even though it's not harmful like addition of dyes, but it is definitely going to reduce the nutritional value. So this was all about spices that we learned. We got to know about this salt, haldi, and or haldi or red chili powder, how we need to check for the color dyes, and how we need to check for if there is any husk added to them. So I think we are good to take some questions. So if there are any questions, we can we can just check for the same, and then we can go ahead with our next topic, or we can go ahead with the next set of our topic, which is about sugar or sugar agents, and it will be about oil. So meanwhile, we can just check the questions. So any questions coming, we are good to take with it. So I can see many people are doing the test with us. Very good. So Manthan, if you see the red color directly coming like it came for our second glass, which is this one, it definitely means your red chili powder is adulterated. Subhashri Bhagyalakshmi, what is husk? So as I explained you, Subhashri, just 5 minutes back, husk is the outer covering of any grain. It can be wheat, it can be rice. So the outer covering, which usually is removed when we get when we get the rice or the wheat dana or the seeds of them, there is an outer covering, seed covering, which is to be thrown away. That is husk. Can we preserve spices? Yes, Arunpreet, we can preserve spices. As I said, we can preserve them in the refrigerator, and definitely, even if you're not keeping it in the refrigerator, you need to keep them in airtight container and do not allow any moisture to go in or any water droplet. Where are spices grown? See, spices are grown widely all over India. So basically, if you go towards the south, specifically Kerala and all, there are a lot of spices which are grown. Saffron is a spice. It is also saffron or kesar. It is also a spice. So it is grown extensively. The best quality of saffron in the world is found in Kashmir. So saffron is basically, again, it is found from a flower, and there are saffron flowers of which there is the stigma, which is the saffron strand, and it is grown in Kashmir. So Kashmir or maybe Kerala and all, they have cloves, they have elaichi, they have cinnamon or dalchini that they grow there. Turmeric is also grown in many areas, even cold places they are grown. But India is regarded as a lot of, it grows a lot of spices, and we do export a lot of spices as well. Yes, Assam is also a leading producer of spicing. How is coriander powder adulterated? So coriander powder adulteration will again be the similar type. So coriander powder do not have a color in it, but you can also check for if they have husk. Now coriander seeds in itself, it is, if you have seen the whole seeds, the coriander seeds in itself, they are quite thick in layer. So there can be a little bit of husk that might come on the surface of the coriander itself. It should not be an adulteration. But if the quantity of husk, if the quantity of floating elements on the surface of the water is very much, you can say the coriander powder is adulterated. So Ramya, I think you have to check the first video of ours on what is adulteration. So I'll just quickly tell you what is adulteration. Adulteration is mixing of any inedible products, or even if it's edible, cheap quality products in our usual products, to either meet the demand or to increase the volume or to make it appealing for the sales purpose. It can be for anything, but it is definitely an addition of the other ingredients which is not supposed to be there in that particular food. None of the spices powder will get fungus in airtight container. If there is if there is no water going in, if by mistake you drop in or you use a wet spoon or you use a wet hand to handle the spices powder, they are bound to get fungus. So always avoid adding any water. Spices are not really nutritionally so high, so they do not make microorganisms grow on them very fast. But if you're providing an atmosphere like adding moisture to it, there can definitely be a growth of microorganisms. How is haldi adulterated? You can check, you can go back and check how your haldi can be adulterated. I think we are good to go. what values does cinnamon have? So I'll just take this last question from Yasmin. So cinnamon is very good for a lot of things. Cinnamon is potentially very good for maintaining good insulin levels. So if someone is diabetic, or if someone has polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is PCOS, which is very common for females, and like young, or maybe young adults or adolescent girls, it is getting more and more common. So in PCOS as well, cinnamon helps a lot because it helps in insulin sensitivity. It helps increasing the insulin sensitivity. That is one thing. Otherwise, cinnamon is also good for digestion. It gives better digestion as well. It increases the metabolism as well. So it's good if you're trying to increase your metabolism, and if you're trying to get yourself a healthy digestion as well. So I think we can go ahead with our session. So we will be taking the next set of our section of our session today, which is about sugar. So first we will be covering the sugar and sugar products. So I'll be showing you a quick experiment with the adulteration as well, and then we will be moving on to a small experiment for the oil and ghee as well. So let's begin with the same. So sugars play a very important role again in our diet, but it is equally important that we are taking care that we are not having like a lot of sugar or sugary product or sweetening agent in our diet. So you have to be very conscious about the amount of sugar you're having. I know there are most of the kids that they are watching us, or there are school children who are watching us today. But even for them, taking care of the sugar intake or sweetening agent intake is very important. Sweetening agent, by which I mean the natural ones. I'm not talking about any artificial sweeteners here. It's about sugar, gur, or honey, which are natural sugars. So you have to always take care that you're not overboarding or you're not having a lot of them. You can have maybe around 2 to 3 teaspoons of sugar or honey jaggery throughout the day. So let's quickly see how we can get sugars, how we can check if they are good for our consumption or not, and how do we store them. So honey, jaggery, and sugar, all three of them, you can get it locally as well as branded. You have to check for definitely if you're getting anything branded, same thing happens here. You have to check for the manufacturing on the expiry date of it, the FSSAI license that you have to check for. Try to get locally available honey or locally available jaggery if you have a possibility to get it, because you do get a better variety, better nutrition value, because they are not stored for longer. So the nutritive value is better. Gur is something which is high on iron content as well. So gur is something which you can definitely get. There are like in the eastern part of India, there is also the dates palm gur, which is available, dates gur, which is available, which is very healthy, and which is definitely very good for the health as well. If anyone from here belongs to East, they might be knowing it. So they play a very vital role in our diet because they give us instant energy. They give us taste and flavor to the food as well. If we are making anything which is a sweet dish, even if it's a savory or a salty dish, they do give a taste or a flavor to the food. So let's quickly talk about how we should be checking if the sugar or if the honey. So I'll be doing 2 experiments here today for the sugar as well as for honey, one each. So to check if the quality of honey that you're getting and sugar you're getting is good or not. So first is we will begin with sugar. So what we will be doing here is, so sugar will need a little time, so I'll just keep it and then I'll show you all at the end of the video. So again, I have taken a fresh glass of water here, and what I'll do is I will add around this much. I've taken it by hand to show you all. So this much of sugar in the water, and we will just mix it up. This needs to get dissolved, only then we will be able to show you the experiment. So let it settle so that I can show you all the experiments. So I'll just keep it there. And meanwhile, we will do another experiment with honey. So what we will do is I'll take a fresh glass again, where I'll take water. So I've taken here this much of water. What I do is I'll take honey. I have honey here. And I will take around just a half a teaspoon of honey. So I've taken here around half a teaspoon of honey. So you can see the honey dripping down. And what we will do is we will be adding the honey to the water. So I've added the honey to the water. And this honey, when we are not stirring it, please do remember, till the time we are not stirring it, we are not putting the spoon inside it, it should go and settle at the bottom of your glass. Okay, so this honey is definitely not coming on the water surface. You can see the water is still clear. There is no dissipation, there is no dispersion of honey that is happening, but the honey has gone and settled at the bottom. So we can, if we stir it, definitely it will get dissolved and there will be a mixture forming out of it. Okay, so this means if your honey is going and settling at the bottom of the glass, this means that the honey is not adulterated with sugar. If the honey is adulterated with crystal sugars, sugar crystals, then as soon as you put them or put half a teaspoon of honey in this much of water, you would see that the honey instantly gets dissolved. This is because addition of sugar or sugar powder to honey will reduce its viscosity, which means the thickness of honey will be reduced, because of which as soon as you're putting it into the water, it will start dispersing and there will be a colored liquid forming. But here when we did it, the honey went and settled down at the bottom of the glass without any dispersion. So we had to churn it or shake it, and after that we could see that the honey could dissolve. Okay. So I just quickly come. Yeah. So just wash my hands and come. So what we will be doing here with this sugar water is, when you're using the sugar, when you're dissolving the sugar in the water, so my sugar crystals are yet not properly dissolved, but they are almost dissolved. So what should happen with this is, there should be no sedimentation, which means there should be nothing settling down at the bottom of the of your glass when the sugar is dissolved completely. So the sugar crystals in the water that I have added is yet not dissolved. That's why it's settling down. But even after settling, even after dissolving completely, if there is any settlements or any sedimentation that you can see at the bottom of the glass, it means there is chalk powder added to your sugar. So chalk powder is added to make the sugar look very shiny. You will see few of the sugar crystal, they look extensively shiny. They look very, very shiny and very, very appealing. And those sugars are usually adulterated with chalk powder to make them look appealing. So what we have to check here is that there is no sedimentation happening at the bottom of the glass after you are checking after your entire sugar is dissolved in the water. So we will again check it by the end of our session, when we can go ahead. So the next topic is a very small one, which is about oil and fats. So again, oil and fats are something which is a very important part of our diet. Many people these days, they consider that we should not be having oil or fat in our diet. Specifically, they refrain or they take them away from things like ghee, which is something which is very native to India. We should not be doing it. They have their nutritional properties, but it's very important that we take them in limited quantity. So any elder, if you are watching here, then teachers and maybe teachers and faculties, elderly people, we do need around 3 to 4 teaspoons of oil or ghee. So ghee, try to have half and half, so you can have around 2 teaspoons of ghee and 2 teaspoons of oil throughout the day. That should be it for an adult. For kids, it can be around 3 usually, depending on their age. If they are above 12 years of age, they will be falling in the same category of 3 to 4 teaspoons. Definitely try to have 1 or 2 teaspoons of ghee in your daily diet. Now, oil or ghee does play a role in adding good fats to our diet, which is from omega-3, omega-6, which is good for our hair, skin, eyes, which is good for our overall system. They also act as antioxidants. And a very vital role that they all play is about nutrient absorption. So certain nutrients like vitamin A, D, E, K, which falls in the fat-soluble vitamin, they only get absorbed in the body if they have certain oil intake along with it. So make sure you're using a little bit of oil definitely in your diet, but it should definitely remain to a little bit, and not meaning it should be deep fried or very oily substances that you're taking in your diet. So again, when you're buying an oil, there is a very common question that we do get: what type of oil is safe for consumption when we are talking about food safety? So try to get an access to cold pressed oils, or which we here in India we call it as kachi ghani. So kachi ghani is a process in which cold pressing technique in which oil is extracted out of any oil seed. So it can be peanuts, it can be soya bean, it can be mustard, it can be coconut. So it can be any of it from which oil is extracted, but cold pressed oil is always better. Refined oil, we need to try to avoid adding it as much as possible in our diet, because as the name refined itself says, that there is a lot of refining process which goes on to extract that oil, and in that process most of the nutrients are lost. So even if they are fortified, they are added with any of the nutrients, they are like they are added separately. They are not in the oil itself. So try to always choose from cold pressed oil. Again, we usually get here packaged oil itself. It's difficult these days in cities to get fresh oil, fresh oil directly getting. So always make sure you're checking for the manufacturing expiry date and the FSSAI license to check for it. So we will be while talking about ghee, it is important to talk about their how safe ghee is. So we will be doing a quick experiment. Before that, I would like to tell you all to always try to make ghee at home. If you can make, or if your mom or your grandparents can make ghee at home, that is always better. Cow's ghee is the best option. Always cow's milk ghee, fresh ghee made at home. If that is not possible, then it can be definitely got from outside, but you need to check for similar things. You need to check for the credibility of how good it is or how safe it is for consumption. So I will be doing a quick experiment about ghee here. So what I have done is I have solidified the ghee. So I will just try to check if it is visible. It's properly visible. I'll take it in a spoon. So this is a solidified ghee. So I had kept it in the refrigerator to solidify, and here if you see, I'll get it close. So here if you see, you can see a layer in which the ghee has been after, if I get it close here, So here you can see there is a layer which has formed. The first layer is a little yellowish in color, and there is the second layer at the bottom settled, which is quite white in color. So take a look at the dent which has come there. So here, basically, if you take all of you take a look here, this part. So that the first layer is yellow, whereas the second layer is a little white in color. You can see the color difference very nicely in it. So this is because I have added other edible oil, which is coconut oil in it, by a little amount into the ghee, and when I have solidified it, it forms different layers. Because of the reason, every oil has a different freezing temperature. That means they get frozen at a particular temperature, which is why they have formed a layer when they were getting frozen. So you can check when you store the ghee in the refrigerator if it is forming any layer. First, you need to definitely mix and make sure all the milk solids are together, like it is all dispersed into the liquid and there is no separate milk solid. So you can mix it and then you can just store it in the refrigerator in the same container in which your ghee might be, in the glass container or in whatever container it is. And then you can see if there are any layers forming, like I showed you. If there are colored layers forming, like yellow and a little light layer coming, there are 1 or 2 layers which are forming, that means it is definitely adulterated. The ghee is adulterated with a certain other oil. So it can be a cheap quality ghee. You can practice the same if you have homemade ghee and an outside ghee which might be adulterated. You can store both of them in the refrigerator and check what is the difference. You will be able to see a very nice difference between them, a very proper discrimination or difference that you can make out. So it is how it will be looking. So we will just quickly take a look at the sugar. So see, by now the sugar that I had taken has been completely dissolved in the water, and I don't see any particles that has settled at the bottom of the sugar. Okay, you can see it's clear, right? If I move a hand here, you can see it there. So which means there are no sedimentation which has happened, which definitely means that the sugar that I'm using is not adulterated with chalk powder. Chalk powder is very bad for our health. It is not something which is edible. It can give us stomach pain as well. So I think we are good for now, good for today. So we can quickly take few questions. So okay. Which brand or seed oil can we check? Brown sugar, can we check purity of Jaggery? Yeah, purity of Jaggery also you can check in the similar way like we did for the sugar test. It's the same for Jaggery powder. If you have Jaggery powder at home, you can check it in the similar way. Adding it, dissolving it completely into the water. If you see any sedimentation in the bottom, as we discussed for the sugar, there can be chalk powder, which is usually added to Jaggery as well. Let's summarize the test again and mention we have specifically added food color to red chili. Okay, sure. Yeah, so if anyone has missed it, I have added red color dye to the red chili test that we showed. It was for the reason we wanted to show you all what is the difference between a good quality red chili powder with no added dye and the one which will have dye in it. So fortunately, I am not consuming and I did not find a red chili powder like that which had dye in it, because I tried with couple of samples, and that's why I have added deliberately to show you all. So it is not that it should look like this or it should not be the similar way. Not getting your question. Okay, Arunpreet, yes, you can have honey or jaggery, which is of good quality, unadulterated, as a substitute of sugar. Do not add on a teaspoon of jaggery or honey extra in your diet, but you can always have as a substitute of sugar. Can we burn mustard oil? I did not get your question, Seema. So, burn as in, do you mean to say, see, mustard oil have a higher burning temperature, which is higher smoking point. So they do not release any chemicals into the oil, even if we are heating up in a high temperature. That's why we use it in our Indian cooking techniques for putting tadka or vagar or whatever you all call it as. It's okay to use edible color powders जो market में मिलते हैं ना. Food is safe for kids. Vaishali, it's always better to not use food colors. It's always better because they are, even though they are edible grade, but they are chemicals. They are not naturally made. If you want to use any kind of food colors, try to use natural ingredients like haldi. You can use beetroot juice to give any red color to anything. Try avoiding all the outside bought or chemical dyes. All of these experiments we have specifically done to show you all the difference, but we would not support using any dyes in the color in your diet. What is filtered oil? So filtration is again a technique of forming or extracting oil, wherein the oil seeds are filtered through different processes to get the oil, which is also better than refined oil. Filtered oil, or the best is always cold pressed techniques, which is kachi ghani, but otherwise filtered oil is also better than having refined oil. It's a technique of extracting oil where at least few of the nutrients definitely remain much more as compared to the refined oil. Hema, it was the answer to your question. Hi, Dhanashwi. Is sugar chemicalized more than jaggery? See, sugar can have a little more of adulteration always because sugar is something which goes through a lot of refining process. Jaggery do not go through a lot of refining process provided it is not adulterated. Okay, Dr. Shikha. So if we dissolve jaggery, there is some sand particles in bottom. Does it contain sand? It might contain. It's the same thing, husks. If there are sand particles coming in the bottom of your jaggery, then it means that there are certain adulteration to increase the volume of the jaggery. I think we are good for today. Any more important questions? Anything anyone has? Thank you. My pleasure. How is oil adulterated? So how is oil adulterated? Now, oil can be adulterated with a lot of things. Oil can be adulterated with cheap quality oil. It can be adulterated with starch as well. Ghee can also be adulterated with starch to give it the creaminess. So there can be n number of possibilities where oil can be adulterated. Okay, Seema, sorry, I have missed your question. So is food color good in spices? Absolutely not. Try to avoid food color as much as possible other than filtered oil, which is good. Cold pressed oil, Hema, that is a good option. And is it okay to eat cheese every day? Most of the time, is it healthy? Cheese should be limited in quantity because it is quite high in calories. Try to limit the quantity as much as you can. I think we are good for today. We are running out of time. So please do mention, or you can definitely post other questions if you have anything. If we missed out on any of the questions, you can definitely post it, and we will be answering them. We'll be happy to guide you. Okay, Yasmin, sorry, I have missed your question. I'll just take it up. It's important to change the oil brand and not stick to only one brand. It's better to, it's not about the brand, but it's about the type of the oil which you're consuming. Every oil or every oil seed has a certain different nutritional property, be it peanut oil, soya bean oil, or rice bran oil or mustard oil. You can always have a mix of these oil, but the quantity do not change. Whatever oil you use, the quantity do not change, and the brand does not really matter. It should be the type of oil which should be different. What is the color of jaggery? It depends. Usually it can be a little brown if you're getting an organic one. It is usually a little brownish in color, or it can be around orange to yellowish. It should not be very white. If it's very crystalline to see, it is definitely added with sugar powder. So we can we can conclude the session for today. I hope you all had a good learning and had a good time as well. Let's catch up tomorrow again with two interesting topics. So we will be covering them, and we will be going ahead. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Have a good day. Arunpreet, your question, I'll see. It's not about. We cannot directly say what is the calorific requirement of anyone. It depends on a lot of other factors. So it's difficult to say in that way. Thank you. Bye bye.